What's up, guys? It's bluetea-TCG back with another Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today's video is going to go over a deck profile for the Darklord Athena FTK I presented in a couple of videos ago. This deck profile is going to go over basically the main deck and the extra deck, as well as a couple of hand tests. We're not going to describe the combo as in depth as I've already done in the previous video, so do make sure to check out the demonstration video for the FTK if you haven't already. The link for it will be in the description. All right, let's go ahead and start with the main deck just to go right into it. So the main deck monsters here we're running is one copy of Darklord Morningstar to get started with the Darklord side of the deck. Darklord Morningstar we're using to typically mill our deck in order to hopefully find Athena in the graveyard or any other pieces such as Superbia and our Darklord spells or traps that we can copy and apply their effects in order to proceed to go into the FTK. So Morningstar is mainly in there for the mill. We're not really using them for the special summon per se, but that extra special summon does happen to help out, especially with pulling out Asmodeus from hand or getting out any other Darklord piece that we need from deck. So next up we're running, speaking of Asmodeus, we're running two copies of Asmodeus. I've got here a proxy for one of them because I don't have my second copy physically, but Asmodeus is what we're using in order to get Athena in the graveyard. This has a soft once return to send any fairy monster in our deck to the graveyard, so we're mainly using this to get Athena in the grave, but you can also use them to technically get Superbia in the graveyard, but generally we'll be using a link monster to do so, since Superbia is a Darklord monster, whereas Athena is not. I do want to point out about Asmodeus that he cannot be special summoned from the deck or graveyard, so do keep that in mind. But we're running a good suite of generic fairy extenders in order to still be able to summon him from the possible places that we can. So next up for the other Darklord monster we're running three copies of Yugioh. Discard 2, draw 2. Nothing much else to say about her. Probably one of the best Darklord monsters. Two copies of Nastin. Nastin is another extender we're running. He's a little minus, sadly, but at least it allows you to get started without having to use your normal summon, so that's pretty important. And then we're running one copy of Nergal, and this is mainly just for having another name for copying spells or traps in our graveyard that are Darklord cards. But of course, Nergal's effect isn't particularly useful for the combo itself. It's mostly just another name for the hard once per turn copy. And then for the so that's all for the Mage Lords. Those are the Mage Lords, so to speak, the ones that can copy Darklord spells or traps from the graveyard. The other Darklord monster we're running is one copy of Ukobak, just to send. This is mainly to send a fusion trap to the graveyard, but you can also send any other Darklord card that you need to see. But we're running the one copy because it's very searchable. One copy of Superbia. This is necessary. You need to run Superbia in order to get the combo, because Superbia with Athena is a pretty long loop, so that's what enables the whole FTK. And because it's, once again, really searchable or dumpable, then we only need one copy. And then we're running three of our best normal summon, Indulge Darklord. Nothing much else to say about her other than if you normal summon her and you have Angel 1 extender or any other extender such as Yugioh, then you'll be good to go for the FTK most of the time. We're running two copies of Capricious Darklord. This is mostly for extra tribute summoning. Sometimes you can't get Morningstar out without having an extra tribute summon such as Angel 1 or Capricious, so that's why it's necessary to run Capricious Darklord for this reason. Alright, so that's all for the Darklord monsters in the main deck. So let me go ahead and clean this up. And then lastly, for our generic fairy extenders, we're running three copies of Angel 1. This is the best of our generic fairy extenders that we're running. This card is extremely good. It gives you another tribute summon when you special summon it by anything. It doesn't have to be special summoned by its own effect. But the nice thing about it is that with the way we've built our deck, it's very easy to get it special summoned by its own effect, since all you have to do is reveal level 7 or higher. So in your hand, you have to reveal it in your hand a level 7 or higher monster. So it's a really good card for Darklords in general, and we're especially going to need it for pulling off the FTK usually. So keep in mind that Angel 1 is what you hope to see in your hand most of the time. Then our next extender is two copies of Yugioh. Yugioh isn't as good as Angel 1 generically, but she's still really good, especially if you go second. She does have an effect that allows you to get a targeting banish removal, so that's pretty useful when the situation does come up. But we're mainly using her just to get her on the field after using like an Indulged Darklord, for example. Otherwise, not much else to say about her. She does happen to chain block in a couple situations, which I hope we'll see in the hand test when we go to Edo Pro. But for now, just understand that she's a solid extender for this deck. Let me not clean these up here. There's one more extender that I need to talk about. Not really an extender as much as a starter per se, but she is considered an extender for all intents and purposes. We're running 2 copies of Hecatress. This is just a searcher for Valhalla Hall of the Fallen. Valhalla Hall of the Fallen isn't a great card, but the fact that we're able to discard Hecatress to search it means that we're able to run fewer copies of Valhalla Hall of the Fallen and just run more copies of Hecatress. And that way, at least we can have more fairies in the grave so that we're able to legally use Athena's effect to summon herself, as well as have more fairies in the grave to banish for Condemned Darklord, which is the Darklord Link monster. All right, and the last main deck monster we are covering here is Athena herself. Of course, 3 copies. Not because she's a great card, but because you need to see her in the hand or the graveyard in order for the FTK to actually be pulled off. So the way we are able to do that more consistently is either milling this off of Morningstar, sending her directly from deck to grave off of Asmodeus, or summoning her directly from the hand with Valhalla Hall of the Fallen or Celestial Transformation, which we'll talk about pretty soon here. So yeah, that's all for the main deck. Let's go ahead and go into the spells and traps. Or that's all for the main deck monsters. Let's go ahead and go to the spells and traps, pardon me. So next up, we've got, we're going to speed through these spells and traps for the most part. These are all just basically FTK enablers that allow us to cycle through our deck, as well as extenders, of course. 3 Allure of Darkness, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Upstart Goblin, 1 Reasoning, and then let's go ahead and clean this up. I do want to mention one thing about Reasoning quickly. This card is amazing in Darklords. Basically, it allows you to get your spells and traps in the graveyard, as well as getting a monster. And because Darklord monsters are all different levels, for the most part, in fact, I can only think of 2 that are the same level, which are Capricious Darklord and Indulged Darklord. But most of the time, your opponent will see that you're playing Darklord and will call something that's completely incorrect they won't call for. So you'll be able to get something off of this most of the time. So pretty good in Darklords. It's not as good in the FTK build, in this build, as it is in pure Darklords, but we're still running it because it's just a nice extender that's pretty free most of the time. And then we're running 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Monster Reborn, and then we're running 3 copies of our Darklord in archetype extenders, you can call them, Darklord Contact, and then 3 copies of the Rhoda for Darklord's Banishment of the Darklords. So Foolish Burial, obviously, to get Athena in the grave. Monster Reborn, generic extender, very good card. Darklord Contact allows us to get Superbia out of the graveyard and onto the field, and it allows us to make sure that we can summon Superbia and trigger its effect without missing timing. Do note that if you apply the effect of Darklord Contact by means of one of our Darklord Mage Lords, and you target Darklord Contact, then you won't be able to use Superbia's effect because it will miss timing. But if you activate Darklord Contact directly, then you'll be able to summon Superbia and then use Superbia's effect to summon Athena. And then Banishment of Darklords makes the deck really consistent, or more consistent, I should say. The deck's not really consistent per se, but it makes the deck a lot more consistent because we can search literally any Darklord card in our deck. All right, and then we've got one more spell to cover here, or 2 more, rather. We've got 2 copies of Celestial Transformation, generic fairy extender, or you could call it a starter or extender. Basically, this is to get Asmodeus summoned from the hand without having a tribute summon, or you can also do this for Athena, but generally Asmodeus is what this is here for. And then 1 copy of Valhalla because we're searching this off of Hecatress, and you don't really want to see this in your opening hand, but you would much rather see Hecatress over Valhalla itself. So keep that in mind. And then the last card we're running, the 1 trap card in our deck, is the Fusion Trap for Darklords. This card is to summon the first Darklord by applying the effect using one of our Mage Lords. And the first Darklord here in this deck is mostly used as an extender. It's not per se our finisher, or we're not using it for the field nuke as we do in pure Darklord, but we're mainly using it as another method of bringing out Superbia and using Superbia's effect to summon Athena, just in case it comes to that. But generally, this Fusion Trap doesn't get used too often, but we are running it at 1 copy. You can choose to run one of the other Fusion Traps that we have available in Darklord, such as Darklord Enchantment, which takes control of opponent's monster without targeting, or you can run any other fusion option that you prefer. That's all for the main deck. It's 44 cards. Let's go ahead and go into the extract. The extract is extremely simple. It's basically, the extract is just full of stuff that we can generically link into in order to get an Athena in the graveyard and continue the loop. So let's start off with the cards that are not as generic. Start with 2 Condemned Darklord. This is a Darklord Link monster, the best Link monster that we have in the deck, and the one that you'll usually go into to get your play started. Then we got 1 Mirage of Lights, because sometimes Herald of Mirage Lights. sometimes you need to negate their spell trap, so having this on board early on can give you some insulation, but generally it kind of uses up your resources, so it's not recommended. For the FTK combo specifically, though, this is a fairy, so it allows you to get the FTK a little bit more quickly. One copy of Dark because DPE is everywhere, and if you go second, you need a way to get their DPE for an alternate win condition, pretty much. And then one copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa is just a very good card in general, but she happens to be a fairy as well, so helps out a lot. And then we're running one copy of Celestial Knight Lord Parshith. Not because of anything in particular, mainly because it's another fairy we can go into for the Athena combo, but also Celestial Knight Lord Parshith can help with getting Asmodeus out from your hand because she does allow you to special summon a fairy from your hand when a fairy you control leaves the field by any means. It doesn't have to be by a card effect, it can be by anything, such as even linking off one of your fairy monsters. Then, of course, you can banish anything in any monster in your graveyard. I believe it's any monster. No, you can banish any fairy monster in your graveyard that's a lower level than you want to summon from your hand. So Asmodeus is level 8, so you can basically banish most of the cards that we have in this deck, such as Angel 1 or Hecatrice herself and things like that. So that's the first set of link monsters that we're running. All right, and then the next set we're running, this is now the fusions. We're running one copy of Alvain. This is our instant fusion target. Nothing much else to say about it other than it is a fairy, so this can be used to go into to condemn Darklord as well. And then running one copy of the first Darklord as our target off of the fusion trap. And I already mentioned what the first Darklord can accomplish in this deck, but he also happens to be 4,000 attack and defense. So if you ever do need to finish in an alternate manner, then he can do it. And then the generic links for facilitating the FTK combo. We've got 3 copies of Nightmare Phoenix, 3 copies of Nightmare Unicorn, and 1 copy of Nightmare Griffin. These can be anything. These can be anything as long as they're generic. You can pretty much just run whatever you like that also happens to be removal. These are the options that I just have available, but as long as it's generic, it could even be a fairy if you want, then it'll work out for the combo. All right, so that's going to do it for the whole deck. Let's go ahead and go over to EdiPro and do some hand test. All right, what's up, guys? So now we're going into some hand tests here, and do note that some of the hand tests have a slightly different build than the build I just showed in the deck profile. As you can see here, there are 43 cards remaining in the main deck here, compared to the 44 in total that we had for the deck profile. So do keep that in mind, but it doesn't change the overall combo too much. So let's go ahead and begin. Looking at this hand, we're probably going to start with the Hecatrice here, and the Hecatrice will allow us to find the Valhalla Hall of the Fallen. And then we're going to use Yugioh to discard 2, draw 2, get a little bit of cycling, use Banishment Darklords to search for Capricious Darklord, and then use Valhalla, trigger it to summon Asmodeus, send Athena, and then normal summon the Capricious Darklord, use Dark Contact to summon Darklord Nastin, and then use Nastin to copy Contact, use Yugioh to copy Banishment, which allows us to add a Superbia. Then we're going to link those 2 off to go into Condemn Darklords, send the Superbia, add the Indulge Darklord, which didn't really need for this combo because we already had Athena in hand. We're going to normal summon it by using Capricious Darklord's quick effect, and then we're going to trigger Athena's effect, sending the other fairy we had to summon Superbia summon Athena, and then now we've got the FTK pretty much locked and loaded. So after this is pretty much just a loop. And do note that as the combo was executed pretty fast, but the general idea of it is pretty much the same as you might expect. So if we're looking at this, we went into Appaloosa shortly before, but do keep in mind you can go into pretty much any link monster that you want. So it's not a huge deal whether you go into Nightmares early or late. But with this, the rest of it is pretty much as we'd expect. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this and move to the next one. So for the next one, pretty similar opening. Start off with the Hecatrice, get the Valhalla Hall of the Fallen, Valhalla to summon Asmodeus, and then I'm guessing Lord Darkness is going to come down pretty soon after we use the Asmodeus to summon or send Athena, and then Instant Fusion to allow us to go into Link Monster, sending the second Athena in the graveyard, and then of course we have the Dark Contact in hand. So once again, the FTK is pretty much all set up here, and the rest of it is history. So I'll let a couple of reps play through, but generally once you've validated to your opponent that it is in fact a loop, then you pretty much stop there and hope that they surrender. So we'll stop there and then go to the next one. So both of those are kind of similar hands. Let's hope to see one that is a little different. So let's go ahead and take a look here. We started with 2 Angel O1s, which is not very good. And do note that this has 2 fewer cards than both the hand tests that were shown before, but it's not going to change too much how it plays out. So let's go ahead and play this out. Starting with the Allure of Darkness to banish Indulge, and then summon Angel O1, use Yugioh, discard 2, draw 2. Foolish Burial to send Athena, and then Darklord Contact to summon Superbia to get the other Athena. I'm guessing we're linking the other 2 off. No, we're going to normal summon. So normal summon in order to have enough bodies to go into Link Monster. And then from here we can get the Superbia in the grave, and then, oh no, we have the extra normal summon. We're going to go into Asmodeus, and then use Athena to send the other Athena with Asmodeus, and then finally we have the FTK. So with this, we obviously made use of Angel 1 in order to have a little more stability in terms of getting all the Athenas, but generally speaking, having 2 Angel 1s is pretty bad, so you gotta just find a way to improvise and, you know, make use of all the summons that you have available. Alright, so this was obviously a little shorter than the previous combo, just because the amount of effect damage dealt was a lot by the time we went into the loop itself. That's because we got the Athena on board a little earlier than normal, but typically that might not happen all the time, so you do want to make sure to have a backup plan. But that is that, and we're going to do 2 more hand tests here. So one of them is going to show how we use Morningstar in our hand test. So let's go ahead and pause here and take a look at this. So we've got 2 extenders plus Indulge, which is pretty good. That generally means we're going to have that FTK, but in this case we didn't quite have it because it depends on what you do draw off of some of the other supporting cards, and here we have 43 cards in this deck, so let's go ahead and take a look. We start off with Angel 1, and then I'll summon Indulge Darklord so that we can trigger the Loageth and Loageth special summons, and then we're going to go into the Link Monster, use the Link Monster to send, let's see, nope, we're adding Morningstar this time, as I mentioned, and then we're going to banish 2 fairies to summon Morningstar, use Morningstar to summon Nergal, and then Mill. So the mill here gave us Athena and a banishment of Darklord, which was literally perfect. It could not have been better. And then from here we'll be able to basically go into that FTK. Now notice now I do have Nightmare Cerberus. You don't really need it, but I had it for this build. Then we went to this Asmodeus to send the other Athena, and then we're going to go ahead and go into that FTK combo from here. So do notice how there's lots of flexibility in terms of what you can run in the extra deck, because it doesn't quite matter as long as you have something that can get Athena in the graveyard that you can link off of. But also do notice how sometimes you do need some extra summons in order to be able to pull the FTK off. And generally speaking, if you don't have all the pieces directly in your hand, as long as you have sufficient number of extenders, you can just be really creative in order to pull the rest off. Alright, so let's go ahead and pause that there. We've established that it's a legitimate loop, and we're going to do one more. We're going to do one more test. So let's go ahead and take a look at FTK Barely. As you can probably tell by the title, this is a Barely FTK. I think, this is actually not the correct one. As you see, I'm running Diviner of the Herald, which is not, that was kind of a remnant of an earlier build. Let's go ahead and show this last one. And this one, I believe I've done a hand test before already, at least something of the effect. But let's go ahead and take a look. As you can see, it's 47 cards. We start with the Hecatrice, get the Valhalla Hall of the Fallen, and then we're going to use Banish of Darkness to get the Darklord Contact, then use Valhalla Hall of the Fallen, trigger the effect, summon Asmodeus, use Asmodeus to send Athena, which triggers the Loageths. We're going to summon her from the hand, and then it looks like we're going into Condemned Darklord, yes. We're going to discard the Superbia for Condemned Darklord's effect to add Asmodeus to the hand, and then we're going to finally use our real normal summon to send the other Athena, and then from here we'll be able to do the rest of the FTK. Again, the Superbia to trigger its effect to summon Athena, and then use Athena to summon the other Superbia back, and then get the other Athena, and then we've established the loop from here. We're in prime loop position. We can basically just go into as many Link monsters as necessary in order to get the full damage. Here we go into Nightmare Phoenix to kind of flex, but again, it doesn't really matter what you go into. You can Link Climb if you want to style on them, but as you can see, we have a spare Asmodeus on this in board. You can use that for an Appaloosa if you would like, but keep in mind that you do need to be able to deal enough damage to them in order to kill them. Going into Appaloosa first thing might not always be advisable. Alright, so I'll go ahead and let this one play out, but yeah, that's pretty much some 5 hand tests. Kind of shows how flexible sometimes your hand can be in order to pull off the FTK, but also keep in mind that looking at those hands, we were able to get a little fortunate, either in seeing the second Athena somewhere, or either having Asmodeus in our hand and able to summon it from our hand with the Valhalla or one of our other extenders. So that's basically a prerequisite in order to pull off the combo. You need to have a way to get 2 Athena in your rotation, as well as a way to get Superbia in the graveyard so that you can summon it with either Darklord Contact or Monster Reborn. Alright, so that's going to do it for our hand test. Thanks so much, guys, for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like and a comment, and please subscribe as well for more Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard content. I hope to do some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos down the line, especially one for pure Dark Lords. Do look out for that. That will probably come down sometime in the future. But with that, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.